Some people say if you knock 3 times on this bridge, something knocks back. Others say it doesn't stop there, because whatever lives here has followed people home. There's a bridge in Texas, just outside a quiet town called Denton. By day, it looks like a relic of a simpler time. Old wood, rusted iron. It's surrounded by trees so thick they seem to lean inward, swallowing the sunlight even in the middle of a July afternoon. You could drive past it 1,000 times and never think twice. You'd see a historic landmark, a place for hikers or local kids to kill an afternoon. But locals, they know better. They know that when the sun dips below the tree line, the atmosphere shifts. The air gets heavy. It's as if the woods themselves are holding their breath, waiting for the first set of headlights to turn onto Old Alton Road. People don't come here at night to cross the bridge. They come here to test it. They come to challenge something they've heard about in whispers since they were in grade school. Something that isn't just a ghost, and isn't quite a man. This is the Old Alton Bridge, but around here, it only goes by one name: Goatman's Bridge. If you ever find yourself in Denton, there's a specific route the GPS won't warn you about: Old Alton Road. It's a narrow ribbon of asphalt that cuts through the North Texas timber. As you drive, the trees begin to form a canopy, weaving together until the sky disappears. Even at noon, there are stretches of road where the light never hits the dirt. Shadows linger here. They don't move with the sun. They stay fixed, like they've rooted in the soil. And at night, the road feels like it's narrowing. You look in your rearview mirror, and the world behind you just dissolves into a black void. There's only what's ahead of you. You follow that road, past the last farmhouse, past the last flickering streetlight, until there's nothing left but the hum of your engine and the oppressive wall of green on either side. And then you see it. The iron trusses rise out of the dark like the ribs of a dead animal. No lights, no modern safety rails, just the bridge, waiting in the center of a silence so absolute it feels like physical pressure against your eardrums. The first thing you'll notice isn't what you see, it's what you don't hear. In Texas, the woods are never quiet. There should be cicadas, crickets, the rustle of a breeze through the post oaks. But at Goatman's Bridge, everything goes dead. It's like a sensory vacuum, like the wildlife knows something that we don't, like they've all fled the area to make room for something else. To understand the monster, you have to understand the man. The year was 1938. Oscar Washburn was a businessman, a black goat farmer who lived just north of the bridge. By all accounts, he was a success, a man who had built a life for himself in a time and place that wasn't always kind. He was known for his livestock and his work ethic. He even hung a sign on the bridge to help customers find him. This way to the Goat Man. At the time, it was a badge of honor, a nickname for a local legend. But success breeds resentment in the hearts of small men. The local clan didn't like Washburn's success. They didn't like the sign. And on one humid night in 1938, they decided to do something about it. They didn't come with a warrant. They came with torches and rope. They dragged Oscar from his house, ignoring his pleas, and marched him down to the Old Alton Bridge. They tied the noose, looped it over the iron railing, and threw him over the side. They waited. They wanted to hear the snap. They wanted to see the struggle. But when the leader of the mob leaned over the edge to look at their handiwork, the noose was empty. The rope was still swinging, but Oscar Washburn was gone. No splash in the Hickory Creek below, no sound of a man running through the brush, just an empty loop of hemp. Panicked, the men ran back to Washburn's house. In their rage and fear, they set it ablaze. His family was inside. They perished in the flames. But Oscar was never found. Not that night. Not ever. Some say he crawled away into the mud, but the stories that follow suggest something much darker. They say that in that moment of ultimate betrayal and pain, Oscar Washburn didn't die. He changed. He made a deal with the darkness underneath that bridge to protect his land and to take his revenge. Decades passed, but the bridge never cleared. In fact, it became a magnet for something worse. In the 60s and 70s, police began receiving reports that went beyond simple ghost sightings. People were finding things in the woods surrounding the bridge, not just litter from teenagers, but intentional, dark arrangements. A hiker once reported finding a clearing less than a half a mile from the bridge. The grass hadn't been stepped on. It was charred in a perfect geometric circle. In the center sat the skull of a goat, bleached white, surrounded by candles that had melted into the very dirt. This wasn't a campfire. This was a ritual. And then there were the animals. Farmers started finding their livestock in the nearby fields. Not killed by coyotes. Coyotes are messy. These animals were prepared. Limbs bent in directions never intended by nature. Blood drained with surgical precision. Always within walking distance of the bridge. The theory among local investigators is that the bridge isn't just haunted by Oscar Washburn. It's been fed for years by occultists who believe the bridge is a thin spot, a place where the veil between our world and something much lower is worn through. They aren't just visiting a ghost, they're trying to open the door wider. There's a story from 2014 that isn't as famous as the TV shows, but it's more chilling. A young man named Marcus decided to debunk the legends. He drove his truck right onto the wooded planks of the bridge, which you aren't supposed to do, and turned off his lights. He sat there for 20 minutes. Nothing. He laughed, pulled out his phone, and started a live stream. "See?" he told his friends. "It's just an old bridge." But then his truck rocked. Not a little nudge. It felt like something heavy had jumped into the bed of his pickup. Marcus froze. He looked in his rearview mirror. In the infrared glow of his phone's camera, he saw two pale, elongated arms reaching over the back of the cab. They weren't human. They were covered in coarse, matted hair, and the fingers ended in something that looked like hooves. He slammed the truck into reverse. The engine stalled. The silence returned, but it was broken by a sound he'll never forget. Knock, knock, knock. Right on the side of his driver's side window. He didn't look. He kept his eyes locked on the dashboard, screaming as he cranked the key. When the engine finally roared to life, he floored it. He didn't look back until he was under the bright lights of a gas station miles away. When he got out, his heart sank. There weren't just scratches. There were dense, deep, heavy impressions in the metal of his door, as if a massive weight had been leaning against it. And on the glass of the window, a greasy, oily smear in the shape of a face, but the eyes were too far apart. You can't talk about the Goatman's Bridge without talking about the night the professionals ran scared. In 2016, Zach Bagans and the Ghost Adventures crew arrived. They thought they were ready. They'd been to asylums, prisons, and slaughterhouses, but this bridge, this was different. During the investigation, Zach, a man who usually runs toward the danger, claimed he was being physically choked by an unseen force. His neck turned red on camera, but the most disturbing part involved their guest, Ashley Richardson. She began to change. Her voice dropped. Her eyes went vacant. Those watching the footage said it didn't look like acting. It looked like someone had stepped out of their own body to let something else in. She had been led away from the bridge, and even then, she wasn't back for hours. Then was Aaron Goodwin. He was standing near the edge of the bridge when he was suddenly launched, thrown by an invisible hand over 10 feet through the air. No wires, no tripping, just pure kinetic malice. The crew left that night saying the same thing. The bridge isn't just haunted by a spirit, it is occupied by a demon. So what is the Goat Man? Is it the vengeful spirit of Oscar Washburn, twisted by hate? Is it a demonic entity summoned by the rituals in the woods? Or is it something older, something that was in those woods long before the bridge was ever built? If you go there, keep a few things in mind. First, don't bring a goat. Local legend says if you bring a piece of goat to the bridge, you won't make it to the other side. Second, don't honk your horn 3 times. That's the invitation. And third, watch your thoughts. People who spend too much time on the old Alton Bridge report a sudden, overwhelming urge to jump. They feel a heavy depression settle over them, a voice in the back of their mind whispering that the water below is deeper than it looks. The bridge is still there. It's waiting for the next person who thinks they're brave. It's waiting for the next person who thinks it's just a story. But remember, if you're standing in the middle of the bridge at 3 a.m. and the crickets stop chirping, and you smell something like rotting meat and wet fur, don't turn around. Just walk. Walk until you hit the pavement. Because if you see those glowing eyes in the dark, it's already too late. If you want more deep dives into the shadows of history, subscribe to the Folklore. Turn on your notifications, because some places aren't just stories, they're still waiting.